All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so hi everyone. My name is Kayla. I'm the training manager here at GreenRope, and today I'm going to go over everything that you need to know. Well, mostly everything that you need to know about the calendars. So, firstly, this is what we're going to be going over today. We're going to talk about calendar setup, private events, public events, booking calendars, connecting your calendars, and other options within the calendars. So there's a lot of things with calendars. So we'll be going through a lot of stuff. So I have a lot of little pop-ups to show you and everything. So just feel free to, ask any questions at any time. I will try my best to, read them while we go. But there is going to be a question portion at the end. So if I don't answer it, I promise I will get to it at the end. Okay. You can use the chat or you can use the Q&A area to ask anything anytime. Okay. Awesome. All right. So the first thing we're going to talk about is calendar setup. So within, hold on. I gotta make sure that I have my faux calendar up for you guys. That's important. Okay, great. Okay, so for calendar setup, so calendars are group specific. So it is very important that when you are thinking about building out calendars and stuff within the software, you think about, do I want the calendars to be, do I want a calendar for each group? Do I want each group to have multiple calendars? Because you could do either. You can have one group that has multiple calendars for different years and stuff. You can have multiple groups and each of them have a calendar. It's completely up to you and what you think would work best. A lot of times people have like a calendar for their webinar, so all their public events are held there, and then they might have a group where all that happens. But then they also have a group that does all of their like team meetings, and so that's two groups with two different calendars, and they know that when they're in those groups, those calendars are supposed to be public or private. The other thing to note is that reminders are group specific. So say you did have one public, one private group for all your different public and private events. You want to make sure that the reminders for the public group make sense for the public group. If they make, hopefully that's tracking because it's group specific. So we'll go over that a little bit more later. But it's important to kind of think about that before you start with calendars. Is okay, should I put this in a specific group? How many groups do I need for the calendars? Or should I just have one group with multiple calendars? The other thing is your calendars in GreenRope can show you tons of information. It's not just the events that you create, but it's also going to show you when your scheduled broadcasts are, when your activities are due, when project tasks are due, and when projects themselves are due. So a ton of information will be found on the calendar. So always feel free to check it out because you never know what you might find in there. And then lastly, the big things when we're talking about setting up a calendar for like the first time is you want to make sure that you check your event types and your event locations. And we'll be going over those in a minute. But those are the two big ones that are used for everything. So every event needs an event type and a location. So definitely make sure that you have those set up and we'll show you how to do that. All right. All right, so what we're going to do first is I'm going to walk you through a private event. So let's go ahead and let's look at the calendar settings. I'm going to actually go back a little bit. So let's go ahead and go into the calendar settings. So I'm going to pull this screen over. And so awesome. Okay, so this is my little test group that I have. So I have a group, it has like a calendar in it. And right now I have a public and a private event on it. Now you can't really tell that from in here, but once you click into the events, you can see that because this is marked private. And then this one will say public. So that's kind of how you can tell if an event is public and or private. But the first thing that we do before we start making events is, like I said, let's go look at the calendar settings. So if you go to settings calendar, this is where you'll be able to say, hey, this calendar, you can name the calendar. You can add a new calendar year. So this is how you can create multiple calendars. So if I want to say, hey, I have a 2024 calendar, now I want a 25 calendar, you could do that. And you can break it up into different years and stuff. So if you don't do that, the system will automatically just generate a calendar for you every year within the group. So if you don't want to manually create the years like in advance, you can have the system do it for you. So like this group, I've had most of my groups for 3 some odd years. And I mean, it's not like the calendar ends on New Year's, it just rolls over to the next year. But if I wanted to, I can make it have multiple years at once. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate me adding a new calendar. So if I add a new calendar, I can go and say, hey, I want 2025 calendar added now so I can start planning my events for 2025. And I want the dates for that to be between these. And there we go. And so we're going to confirm. And now you can see up here when I'm in this group, I can look at my 2025 calendar or my 2023 to 2024 calendar. So hopefully that's making a little bit more sense of it. I'm going to go ahead and delete this calendar year because in this example, it doesn't really make sense. But, if that's something that you're wanting to look into, you absolutely can do that. Okay, so then the other settings we want to talk about. So like I said, the event types, very important. So right now I have 3 event types. Now, when we're looking at event types, it's important to note that the system will give you, I think, a couple default ones, but you can always have the system give you more. So this is actually a little hot tip. But if you ever are like, hey, I don't want to create all these events myself, I want just default events given to me. If you go into the group settings, and if you scroll down to the group type will create different event types for you. So like if I clicked on Card Club, it would create default event types for me based on the fact that I've said that this group is a card club. So it might have, next card game, a poker night event, stuff like that. So these are a good way to kind of have have the system. It's a shortcut to make events. That way you don't have to make every single one yourself. So always a hot tip there, but you can always create your own events by clicking on this button. So here's kind of the breakdown when it comes to event types. First, you want to name the event type, and then you want to give it a default location. Now, you don't have to. You can always change the location of the event, like per event, but you can to, again, make life easier on yourself if you want to. You can also give a default duration or what a duration for like this event type would be. So as you can see, my webinar events are 60 minutes, but my meetings, I don't have those defined. So I can set my meetings however long I want. You can also set the max attendees. So again, if this was a group that was going to hold all of my private events, I might make the max attendees for, my meetings 15 people. But if this was for a public meeting I'm having, well, then maybe I'll make it unlimited and I don't say anything on there, right? If you set it to 0, you'll see it in the little tooltip there. But if you keep it at 0, it'll be unlimited. So it's not saying 0 people are invited. It's saying that, okay, we're not going to set a limit. But if you put 1 in here, then that sets the limit. So, and also if you put a 1, it makes it technically an appointment. So, you can also designate an event fee. So you can say every time I use this event type, I'm going to automatically have an event fee of $15. So you could do that. And then we have reminders. So in the events themselves, you can dictate who gets the reminders. But here you can also say, hey, whenever I'm doing a meeting, all of my active clients get them, as well as all the confirmed attendees. Or you can say only the confirmed attendees are going to get it. And then lastly is the visibility of this event type. So if you want to share this calendar publicly, you would want to make the event type visible on the website. So that way when they go to view it, they will see it because it's a public event and it's visible on the website. So make sure you mark those public event types that you're using a lot as visible. And then you can also say, I want them to be able to see the address and notes within the calendar itself, like on the public or within the members only area. So this is if you have a members only area and they're logging in, or if you have it on a website, you want to make sure that they can view this event type. Otherwise, they may not be able to see it. So always good to do that as well if you're going to be making this a very public event. Awesome. So then I was just checking to see if there was anything going on over here. I do see that there are a few questions, so I'll get to those at the end. Again, feel free to put them in, but I probably won't be able to get to them until we get to the end. So once you have your event type, you'll see it show up here. And again, you can always go in and edit it and save those changes and stuff. You can also change the color of them. So this will change like what the color of that event looks like on your calendar. So as an example, you see that this event is this blue while these events are gray. And that's because email broadcasts are set to blue. You can also set your activities to be a specific type because, again, this will show you your upcoming activities and stuff. So you're like, okay, I want my calendar to show me all inbound calls in red, or I want to see all, send reminders in green or in gray or whatever. You can do that. So this is a great place to go for just basically really customizing your view and how people can view your calendar. So hopefully that all makes sense. The next options that we need to look at are the event locations. So these are kind of my, standard ones. They don't have to have an actual address if you don't want them to. So like I have a Discord one, I have a Zoom one. So, for training calls, so some of you might have had training with me. On a lot of training calls, you might see that your event location is Zoom. And I set that on purpose so that way everyone knows that we are using Zoom, not Teams and not Skype. We're using Zoom. Just to make it clear. So it's always good to have an event location, even if it's just going to be an online location, because it just makes things a lot more clear and organized. And again, you can set those defaults in here. Makes life a little bit easier in the long run. The other things that you should look at is possibly setting a fee. So if you wanted to say, hey, anybody who wants to view this calendar, so any active group member that wants to view this calendar, or not view, but wants to interact with this calendar, needs to pay money, basically. So you can make it a membership specific calendar. So this is a good way to say, hey, all of the events here are going to be, to get to these events, you have to pay $15. So, but yeah, so that's kind of the basic setup stuff. The next thing we're going to do is the private events. So I'm going to kind of go back into the slides. Great. So a private event is pretty easy to set up. The first thing you need to do is go into your calendar and click on the date that you want to set that up. Then you're going to go through the info, and I'm going to show you how doing this throughout the system as well, but I'm going to go through kind of the steps and then we'll walk through creating one together. So the first thing, is go to the calendar, click the date, and you start filling out the information. You always want an event title, and you want to set that event type and the location as well as the start and end date. Attendees. So this is saying, hey, I'm going to do a team meeting, and we have a special guest of, Ginseng. She's our special guest. And so I'm going to put that in there. And that way everybody sees that we have a special attendee coming. I want to set my max to 10 people because I have 10 people in my company. Special guest. Special guest would be Ginseng. My bad. Sorry. This is if you want to add, oh goodness, it just left my brain. I promise I'll come back to it though. Sorry, it's going to bother me because I know it, but my brain's forgotten it. When we get in the system, I promise I'll remember it. But you can also set the event fee here. After you create the event and you set up all the information for it, then you want to go in and do the settings. So there are a ton of settings. These are just kind of a preview of like the top section of them. So again, we're going to go over them. But this is a way of saying, hey, when people go to my RSV page, this is the template we're going to use. And again, we're going to show you that. You can survey the attendees. So if you want it to be, hey, they are RSVPing, it'll automatically direct them to a survey. So that way they fill out a survey and RSVP at the same time. And you can allow them to invite guests. So a lot of times in private events, you won't allow guests, but you can if you want to. But this is a really good tool for if you're going to be doing a lot of public events and you want people who aren't necessarily contacts to also be able to come to the event. Then the attendee attendee RSVP actions. There we go. So these actions include like, hey, when they say they're going to attend, put them in a group, send them an email, and activate a workflow. And as most of you know, if you can activate a workflow, you can activate pretty much any other automation in the system. You can then put them on a journey that then activates another workflow that sends them a text that puts them in a different journey. It kind of opens the floodgates. So when people mark attending, a ton of automation can then happen from there. And, click the wrong button. Sorry. And then we'll craft our description. So we want to make sure that we describe what this event is going to be. Again, if it's a team meeting, you may not need a description, but you could always put a small one, and that will show up on the RSVP page for them. So let's go ahead and let's check this out within the system. Sorry. There we go. Okay, so this is the RSVP page. So this is the first thing. So when people say that they're going to be attending, this is what they see. And as you can see, there's our description that I talked about. And then hold on, sorry. Where did the events go? There we go. There's some reason it's another window and I wasn't ready for that. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a private event. So this is my sample one that I created. Again, if you just click on the date, you'll be able to create your own new one. So this is our sample one. It's a team meeting. It's on Friday from 10 to 1. So it's a long meeting. I'm definitely attending. So I put myself, yes. So, wow. Sorry, there was something there. There we go. You can also, this is a good way to invite people. So if you want to invite them straight from here, you can say, hey, this person's attending, send them an invite. So this is basically where you can go if you want to say, hey, I'm creating this event. I know these people are going to be attending. Now I'm going to just go ahead and invite them through here. Makes life a little bit easier, but you could also always send them an invite through a personal email, through an email blast, and I'll show you exactly how to do that. But so we've already gone ahead and created our event here. It's located at a house, someone's house, probably mine. It's a private event, so you don't need to worry about any of this. And then we have our settings. So like I said, you can set up all of these. This little question bubble will show you all the different options you have for that RSVP page. So right now we have the modern gray. So that's that default one you saw there. I'm gonna go ahead and put these all on one tab because that's going to be confusing later. I don't. It's already confusing now. There we go. So yeah, so you can go through, you can pick whichever one you want. If you want your own, you can absolutely do that. You can do a custom web page. You put the URL to the HTML template that you've created for that. Is HTML? Yes, HTML. And then that way, show the content. Yes. Okay. So there is an example template. So if you're like, hey, we want to build our own, but we're not really sure where to start, you can also use this example template to kind of get started. But yeah, so then you can go through and kind of put through, actions you want. The other things you can do are RSVP interactions. So this means, okay, what if they don't mark their attending? Well, we don't want them to just not get anything. We don't want them to get part of anything. We probably want them to get, more information. So if they say they're not attending, maybe we want to put them into a URL. And again, if you have a URL and that has a link that we're tracking, you can trigger a bunch of stuff. And then when they click on there, it could send them to a sign-up form to get them interested in more information. If they're unsure, maybe they go to a splash page where it kind of tries to entice them into joining. The other setting that is not very important, but it is pretty important, is to say who the event manager is. Designating who the event manager is going to be very important when it comes to, the attendance summary. So every event can have a summary of attendance sent to somebody. And so by default, it will always send to the event manager, but you can also send it to any shared access user. So I don't have any in this group and in this calendar. But if I could say, I want to send it to Steve and I want to send it to Jensine, and that way more than just myself would get it. But by default, it will send it to that event manager. And then lastly, we'll build out our description. And then we've basically set up a very basic team meeting private event within the system. Now, there are a ton of other options in here. You could do a scan check-in. This is a really good option for if you're going to be doing like an in-person event and you just want them to, they can come in, you can scan their code, put their code in and check them in for them for that contact. If it's going to be online, you don't necessarily need to worry about that, but that's completely up to you. It's just an additional option. And then we'll get to registration options, but this is always a great place for if you're like, okay, well, we want to have this event, but we're going to be doing brainstorming. I want to know who wants to what they want to put on the agenda, right? So maybe I want to collect information from them, but I don't necessarily want to survey them. You can make a registration option where it asks them to put in a intertext, right? So you can say, do you want to add to the agenda? Right? So then this option will show up on this page and they can fill that out. And then that way that information is automatically sent or automatically tied to the event because that person's attending. So this is a good way to do that. You can also, another good way is to enter it into a contact data field. So that's a great way. So these registration options are really cool. So definitely feel free to go through and check them out. But they will always show up here on this RSVP page. Awesome. Okay, so now we've created a private event. Let's talk a little bit about how we would make this private event public or how we make a public event. So a public event is, in theory, supposed to be sent out, like anybody can register. So let's go ahead and go through. So Here are the main differences between a private event and a public event. The private event, you must email them an RSVP link of some sort. That could be through that attendee dropdown that I showed you. It could be through a personal email where you use the placeholder. It could be through an email blast that you send to like a small group of people. You can send it however you want, but it has to be sent through the system in an email in order for them to RSVP. The opposite of that, or not opposite, but the difference that it comes to when it comes to the public event is when you create a public event, it generates a link for you. The system automatically generates a link for you that you can tie to a button. You can put it in any email. You can send it to anybody. They can forward it to anybody. And you can even use that link to iframe or you can also use like the calendar link to iframe, hey, we're having this event. Feel free to, register here, and they will see your calendar and be able to just click in and go through it. So again, public events are meant for anybody and everybody to come into the event. The other differences are when I send out that email for a private event saying, hey, RSVP here, it takes them straight to the RSVP page that I've shown you, right? When you do a public event, that link that you send them is going to take them to a registration page where they have to register their email address. So this will create them as a contact if they aren't one already. And it will also, it's also a good way of making sure you're not getting you're not getting spam or bot, registration or people saying they're going to attend but they're not real people, because you can have a captcha tied to it. So it's kind of a splash page that makes sure that this is a real person, adds them as a contact and all that jazz, and then it takes them to the RSVP page where they can finish registration and doing the registration options, paying and stuff like that. All of the paying, all the registration options and everything is done within the RSVP page. The registration page for public events is just to register their email address and say that they are interested in coming, kind of thing. It's not going to mark their attendance for them if they don't pay or anything like that. So always make sure. So I always want to make sure to clarify that, because registration options sound like it should be on the registration page, but the registration page and the registration options are on separate pages, and that is intentional. The other difference is, like I said, private events are meant to be attended by certain people. So that's why we have you sending them an email rather than just giving you a link to the event, while public events are meant to be attended by anybody. Awesome. So to create a public event is actually super easy. We've already created our one event. So we could easily turn this one team meeting into a public event by going in here and clicking on that checkbox and hitting save. Now my private event is a public event. It's generated a link, and I can go in and start sending that link to whoever I want. So I've done this, and I can click on this, and that's this registration page. So I want to show the difference here. This is the registration page. See how I just enter my email address and it's giving, and you have to fill out a captcha, right? So these are great ways to, there we go. So the registration page is going to be different than that RSVP page, right? Awesome. So the public event settings that show up here are going to be specific to that registration page, because again, that's the only difference between a private event and a public event is that registration page. So in here, you can say, hey, this is what I want their email to get, because you can set this up to be double opt-in. So kind of like with the sign-up forms where you can say, hey, when they register their email address, it sends them an email they have to confirm before they can actually RSVP. That's what happens here. If you want them to be able to go straight to the RSVP page, you can by making it a one-step public registration. That means as soon as they put in their email address, they go straight to the RSVP page and they can mark themselves attending. They can pay for the event. They can put in guests. They can do all the registration options and stuff like that. They don't have to worry about getting the email first. We do always suggest doing the two-step because it's the extra layer of making sure that a true person is signing up for this event. You can also use, what was it? Captcha. This is where you can turn off the captcha as well. If you don't want that captcha, you can do that. Again, if you do these things, you are liable to make it open for more people to come, but more possible bots and spammers to say they're coming and they're actually not real people. They're just going to gum up your system by saying they are. This is also where you can, if you want to change this registration page, you can do that in here. You can change what that is. Let me see. Yeah, so you can change the color of it. You can change what that next button says. This button, you can change that button if you want to. And then if you want to add extra notes, you can. So I can say, this meeting is now open to the public, right? And so as soon as I hit save and I do that, now you will see this. So you see how my description got changed because I said, okay, instead of using my description, I want to use these instructions. So this is a good way to say, hey, I want my description that's shown in here to be different than the information I'm showing on this page, okay? So this is, sorry, I just saw something. Can I get the replay? Okay, this is being recorded and it will be posted. So don't worry about that. Again, I see that we have questions. I will get to them as soon as I can. But this is kind of the public events can be a little confusing when it comes to this registration page. So I want to make it very clear that the registration page is meant to stopgap from getting just junk. And so we have the registration page. You can modify it. You can change it. You can make it look however you want to make it look. But it is going to be the first step and what people see very first when it comes to public events. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to, I believe I saved that registration option. Let me go and save that. So when you do have registration options, you make sure you save the option as well as save the event, just to be doubly sure. Really, as long as you save the registration option, you should be fine. But I always like to save triple, quadruple times to be extra sure. And now you can see that registration option. Wow. Oh, it's because I made it public. That's my bad. So now I have to come in here and I have to, let's do that one. And now it's going to take me to the RCP page, which for, oh, I think I put in a custom thing. Either way, this, oh yeah, I put custom web page. That's why it was doing that. I was like, that's weird. Why is it doing that? There we go. So there's that. And now you'll see that that option is in there. So I can say that. I can also mark options as required. So this could mean, okay, maybe I'm not charging anybody for this event, but I don't want them to be able to say that they're attending until they fill this out. If you mark a registration option as required, they will not be marked attending until they fill that option out. They also will not be marked attending until they pay. So you can, the nice thing about registration options is, so again, you can always have an event fee. Feel free to do whatever event fee you want. And that's just a flat fee to attend the event. In the registration options, you can also say, hey, if they fill out this option, oh, sorry, wait, I had a new one. If they fill out this option and if they choose the first, they choose the first choice, we're gonna do, so a lot of people like to do this for like the food. So, okay, if they're gonna choose fish, they have to pay an extra $15, right? So, okay, they're paying $35 for the event. Okay, now they want fish for their plate or whatever. That's gonna be an extra $15. So this is how you can kind of, you know, really customize what they're choosing and what they get charged for, kind of thing. And then once you do that, you'll always be able to come into the attendee reports and see who's attending, who's marked as pending. So if they're marked as pending, again, so pending registration is something that's really only going to happen when it comes to public events, because this is someone who went into the registration page, they put in their email address, but then they never marked themselves as attending, they never paid, they didn't do anything, they just put in that they're registering. So they're pending. They are not, they haven't said they're not attending, they haven't said they're attending, they haven't said they're unsure, they are just sitting there waiting. So yeah, so always feel free to go in there for that. And so this is a good place to go if you're like, okay, we have it's in like a week, the event's in a week, let's go ahead and email our pending registrations and tell them they need to go in and actually pay if they want to come to the event. So you can always go in here, and all of these lists, you can't see it because I only have one attendee, but all of these lists, you can see them. You can go to their CRM. You can see that, go to the contact CRM. You can email all of them. So you can email all the attendees, all the ones who are unsure, stuff like that. You can export them. You can put labels. You can create labels for them. I'm not going to do that right now, but there's a ton of options here. I believe with not attending and unsure, you can only email them and like see them and stuff. I don't think it lets you do all the labels for them, because why would you create labels for someone who's unsure about coming to your event? But either way, this will also show you all the people who have responded in some way, shape, or form. So if you just want a list of everybody who's touched this event, you can do that there too. So yeah, so this is, the other thing, you can also manually put people in attending here. So if you can put people in here saying, hey, this is a new contact that they're attending, you can do that in here. And then in here, if this is somebody who's already a contact in your system, you can do that. You can, if I start typing in my email address, I can get No, sorry, wrong place. But yes, so you can go in here, you can manually put in attendees. So say someone's having real trouble or they told you in passing that they're going and you just want to go ahead and put in their attendance, you can do that for them in here. When you do that, if it is a paid event, it will give you options to mark them as paid, or, you can say, hey, I need to send them an email so they pay, stuff like that. We always want to make sure that you collect payment before people actually are able to come to the event or find anything about getting to the event, kind of thing. And then we do have reporting, so you can always come in here and check out, total registered attendees. There's a ton of other reporting. Unfortunately, I don't have a super robust example to show you right this second, but always feel free to go in there and check out more reports to this specific event. Let's see. I think that was it. Okay, cool. So again, making a private event into a public event, super easy. You just go in, check a box, and then you can start making that registration page and move right into making this, and then taking that link. And you can even edit the link, which is nice. You can just take that link and put it wherever you want, and people can just start registering and saying they're coming to the event. So we talked about this a little bit, but just to break it down, the difference between a registration page and an RSVP page is the registration page is going to prompt them for their email address, so they register for the event. This does not mean that they are attending. The RSVP page is where they go and mark their attending status, either by marking it manually, completing the registration options, by paying, all the above. Those will mark them as attending, and that's what the RSVP page is for. Registration page is a good way to confirm email addresses and create new contacts to make sure that they are valid and they're not, bots. RSVP page allows them to fill out the registration options for their attendance. So again, we talked about that, but just to touch on it. And then the registration page gives them access to the RSVP page where attendees as they get to the RSVP, once they get from the registration page to the RSVP page, that's where they can actually pay, and they can say they're taking guests and stuff like that. Those are very important. The difference between these is important. So I might be hammering it a little bit, but it's important to know these are different and there is a reason for it. So let's move on to booking calendars. So before we go to booking calendars, so this is kind of shifting a little bit, like dramatically. So I'm going to go ahead and go through some of the questions because I do see that we have quite a few. So then I'm going to go ahead and go through some of the questions about events, and then we'll move on to calendars. So let's look and see what we got in here. So first, Steve asked a question: does this info go to their record automatically? So any information about their registration options, if they marked attending and stuff, all that information is going to go into an activity within their contact record. So I actually think I can show you a pretty good example of this in my contact record. So in my in this contact record, go down here. Hold on, I might need to refresh and go back. Oh, I said not attending. There we go. Okay. Show, I am attending. Cool. Settings, attendance, there we go. I think it might be, let me just go, I'm not showing events. That's why I was like, why is it not showing? Let's only see my events. There we go. Yeah, so you will see these will attend events activities like show up on the contact record, and all the information for this. So this is our monthly webinar appointment that I did. So our team meeting at house, right? So this will show you the log of what I said. And then you can always go into the registration options to see what exactly I chose. So yeah, so it will be automatically recorded. All the event information's in there. We always show this log. We always have this log just so you can see like, oh, they said they're attending. Okay, wait, no, they said they're not going. Oh, wait, okay, no, they did say they're coming. It's a good way just to see what happened with that person. Awesome. And then let's see. Okay, so let me scroll a little bit. Okay, so it integrates with Outlook very easily and sends the Zoom link automatically as well. So I'd like to do it with GreenRope if easily possible. I believe this was Steve. Yeah, Steve talked about Acuity. Okay. And have one that combines everything. Since I am a sole operator, I need to be able to cover everything, and I have it in one place for no double booking or conflicts. So we'll talk about booking calendars in a second, but I can't tell you that the system will. So And we will also talk about connecting to third parties. But within GreenRope, you can connect your third-party calendars within the system, and you can, and it will read those events in and use those to also block out dates on booking calendars. So that's actually how I use my booking calendar. Is I have a GreenRope calendar for it all, but I also have a Google calendar, and I have 2 different training calendars. And if one says, "Hey, I'm gonna have an appointment at 9 o'clock," it gets moved over, so that way the other calendar sees it and blocks it off, so I don't get a double booking. So absolutely can do that. Danny, we are going to record this. Megan says, we currently use Calendly and have multiple events. It connects with our Google calendars. Does GreenRope have the same functionality? Yes, it does. And I will show you how. And then Michael, I have dozens of pieces of internal and external equipment, which requiring calibration each year. I want to track each piece in GreenRope on a calendar that remind me 1 month before the calibration is due to expire. Is that possible? Yes, I would probably say that the best way to do that is by creating repeating activities. So you can have an activity that reoccurs. And so you'd have a reoccurring activity, and that activity will show up on your GreenRope calendar. So yes, you absolutely can. And then responses to question on the registration. Tony asked, can we customize the event registration RSVP pages? Absolutely. So like I mentioned before, to do that, you would, this is all to customize your registration page. So you can change the color, you can change what email they get. And in the color, you can also choose like a background image if you want to. It's not just a color. But this is where you can change the page background. And as far as the RSVP page itself goes, yes, you can also do that within the settings using these different templates. And then Steve asks, responses to questions on the registration page too? Yeah, so all of the registration option information that they chose is collected. I believe it's in their attendance, actually. I'm losing it, aren't I? No, here we go. There we go. No. I have to this notes in CRM. It's a great question. I'm so sorry. I thought I knew, and now my brain's lost it. If anybody else in chat knows, please answer Steve, because my brain has forgotten that today. But Steve, if I don't find it by the time we end, I will absolutely email you. I'm so sorry. I know that it's somewhere. I just can't remember where right now. But let's go ahead and shift gears and let's talk a little bit about booking calendars. There's a lot to do with calendars, so I'm trying to get through it all by the hour, so I know it has to sit a little over. So, all right. So booking calendars. So within the system, you can also have any group that has a calendar in it. You can say, hey, this calendar this group also has a booking calendar. So booking calendars, you can only have one booking calendar per group. So this is a little bit different in that you can't have multiple per group. But you can say, hey, in this group, I want an appointment calendar. And it is literally as easy as checking a box. This box in here, and I'll show you where it's at in settings calendar. But checking that box automatically says, okay, in this group, we now have an appointment calendar, and it creates it for you, and you can start making your time slots literally as soon as you check the box. So let's go ahead and show that. So we're in my events group. I'm going to say, okay, I have all my events in here anyways. I might as well put my booking calendars in here. So in settings calendar, this little checkbox right here, I check that box. I'm going to see all these options for the booking calendar show up. I save my changes. Sorry, I had to turn on my fan and it's a little loud, so I'm going to turn it off. So yeah, so this is where you can create those booking. Literally, I've created a booking calendar now. I know it doesn't look like it, but I did, because now when I go hover over calendar, I will now see this booking option. So this is where you create those time slots that you have available, and you'll also be able to see the events that you have coming up within this calendar. So I do always want to make sure that it's very clear. When you go to calendar booking in a group that has a booking calendar, the only thing you can do in here is create booking time slots that are available, where people can go in and say, hey, I want to book with you between these times because you say you're available. That's all you're going to do in here. It only creates the slots for you. Now, it will show you events in here to help you. Maybe if you're like, okay, I want to create slots for this day. Oh, I have something from 10 to 1. Okay, maybe I'll move all my stuff to Tuesday, kind of thing. But you can also have it show all the other events. You can say not to. If you don't toggle on all the other events, all it's going to show you are the events for this specific group. So just a heads up. But yeah, so I've created a booking calendar. And so now the next thing we need to do is create a time slot. So the way we do this is we go in and say, okay, on Tuesday, I'm going to be available. I can say, hey, only on Tuesday, the October 3rd, am I available between 10 a.m. to, let's say, 4 p.m., right? And you can schedule a meeting with me, okay? That's done. There we go. I've created that slot. Boom. So on that day, I now have a time slot from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. that anybody can book with me. And so I've literally checked a box, created a time slot, and now when I use this link right here, and boom, somebody can come in and book with me today. Now, probably wanted to make it a little bit more customized, and you can absolutely do that. So the first thing is in here, you can add in comments and descriptions. You can really stylize those so that way when people go into book, it shows them more information about what the appointment is. So say it's a meeting for 60 minutes, I let them book with me, right? Well, maybe I want to have, a comment in here about how, how the meeting will go. So I've kept my we will meet on Zoom, right? And then after they say that they want to do it, I want to say log in with link provided, right? So very simple, very silly. So yeah, now I have those. So now when I go in to this, I will see, okay, we're going to meet on Zoom. And then once I make my request, then this message pops up after the request is made. So very basic. We've made a booking calendar, we made a time slot, and we've given it a little bit of a zazz, right? Again, you're probably going to do a lot more than I am, but this is kind of the basics of it. Now, there are a ton of settings for booking calendar. So if you go into settings, calendar again, this is where you're going to find all those settings. You're going to be able to go through. You can say, hey, show weekends. No, don't show weekend. You can put in a custom image to show up here on the top right. Sorry, over here. You can designate when appointments are. So maybe instead of every 5 minutes, I want my appointments to be 30 minutes. Or every 30 minutes. So when they come in, instead of it saying 10:05, it's only 10, 10:30, and 11. There's a ton of options in here, so always feel free go through. There's you can ask for user field data. So if I wanted to, when they go in to book with me, I want to ask them, maybe I want to have a contact field in here for their sales rep. So I want to ask them who their sales rep is. I can have that field in here. And then that way they are always telling me, I can request their phone number. I can not request it if I don't want to. I can set up default comments and stuff. So I can say, hey, in this booking calendar, the default comments for any appointment are going to be this, and default appointment description is going to be this. So that way I don't have to do it per time slot. It's a good time saver. And then if you scroll down here, these are all the ways to trigger automation and stuff after they've booked. So if they've booked, you can have them go to a splash page. You can send them a specific email. You can put the date and time into specific user fields, and then you can trigger a workflow. Again, workflows do a ton of things. So in training, we use booking calendars all the time, and we have a journey that gets triggered when you book. It then leads you to a workflow that gives us an activity that then puts you into another journey for follow-up after. So there's a ton of ways that you can trigger automation just with this one workflow after they have been approved. Now, a big thing to note about booking calendars when you first start is by default, the system will say any booking calendar must require approval before the booking is actually made. What that means is when they say, hey, I want to book, you're going to get an email asking you, an email to you. So to me. So it says email sent from. So it's going to look at whoever is sending the emails for this group. And this is set up in the group settings. And it's going to say, okay, Kayla is the one who's sending these emails. So when anybody books, we're going to send Kayla a email. And it's going to ask me, do I approve this booking or not approve the booking? Now, A lot of times that's helpful for us. So we do that. But a lot of times people don't need that. So you can turn that off and you can say, no, as soon as they book it, just do it. I'm not going to approve them. You also have the option of reserving the slot, which basically means like, okay, we aren't approving it right off the bat. It's going to send a request still, but that time slot will appear as if it's been reserved for them. So nobody else can go and try to book the same time slot at the same time. So yeah. So booking now is actually really easy, really cool feature. So definitely go in and check it out a little bit more. And then hopefully that answered a lot of the questions on those. All right. Cool. So we are moving. All right. So moving on to the last little bits here. So a lot of you have asked about this, how we can connect our calendars. So you can sync your calendar, your third-party calendar with you can sync your third-party calendar, but one feature that we offer is also combining calendars. So within the group settings, within the calendar settings where we were, and I'll show you, you can say, hey, this one group that has a booking calendar in it, that booking calendar also is combined with all the other booking calendars. So this will often be used for sales. It could also be used for training, but basically this is saying, hey, whenever somebody goes to, this is also the vanity URL. This is a good thing to put in. So we're going to put events. So if I didn't want the app, this book.pl, blah, blah, I could have this instead. Oh, sorry, that's already being used. Events. Kayla. There we go. But yeah, so then now, okay, I don't need to worry about getting this whole long link because I've created my own with that vanity URL. So then I can take this vanity URL and say, okay, when anybody goes to this URL, they're going to see all of the available slots for these booking calendars. So the booking calendars within these groups, will now all be combined under this one link. So hopefully that's making sense, but that is absolutely how you can combine calendars. So when people go to a booking calendar, they can potentially book with 4 or 5 different people, right? So like salespeople, training people. Okay, we offer general training. They can train with anybody. They can go in and just book to the time slot, and it doesn't matter who they get. And then that way you still have those separate booking calendars. So they're getting, maybe they're getting all of my stuff because they booked with me, but then the next time they book, they get all of Jensine's stuff. So they're still getting accurate information, but you don't have to send them specific links for each person. So hopefully that's making sense. So that's how you combine calendars. The next thing is connecting calendars. So like we said, you can sync. So the way that calendar sync works is you can sync your third-party calendar into GreenRope. And what that means is you say, hey, I want all of my information from Outlook, Calendly, Google, whatever. I want all the events in that calendar to be seen within GreenRope. And if you do that, that will affect booking calendars as well, because as soon as GreenRope pulls in an event from a third party, it blocks that timeout on your booking calendar. So that's very important. So if you have booking calendars and you do have a third-party calendar, I always highly suggest turning this on. The easiest way to do that and the best way is to go down here. And there are 2 options. You can put in your calendar ID, which is often just your email address with Google, or you put your webcal URL. So every online calendar has a webcal URL. Now, it depends on who you're using as to where you can find that information, but you can use that. And once you pull it, you will see there we go. It's a .isc file. So this is basically saying, hey, this calendar that I have over here, take all of that data, put it into here. Once you do that, it's going to be able to go in. It's going to be able to go in and say, hey, we're going to pull all that stuff in. And GreenRope only pulls in busy events. So as long as the event is marked as busy on that third-party calendar, it will get pulled into the system, and the system will block your booking calendars for you. Now, if you want your GreenRope events to be seen in your third-party calendar, that is a separate sync. And that is done actually within the email client or whoever you have that third-party calendar with. So if you have Outlook, you would go into your Outlook calendar and you would basically subscribe or publish your GreenRope calendar into there. The way you do that is you go to the calendar. And you would pull, what is it? Not these, hold on. subscribe. Okay, yeah, right here. So you would pull this file. So you'd copy this address, you'd copy that, and you would put it in to Google or Outlook or whatever your third-party calendar is as a new. I think in Google they call it you're subscribing to a calendar. In Outlook, it's publishing a calendar. But you put that file in, and it will automatically be updating from our system into their system. So that's how you get the events from GreenRope into Outlook or wherever else. So that's the way you can sync those two. You can also share calendars. So if I didn't want to necessarily connect them, but I want somebody to be able to share them, you'll probably take this public calendar and you'll click on that. And there's my public calendar, right? So these both are public events, so that's why you can see them. Now, if I went back and turned off the public event for team meeting, it would no longer show up here because it's not a public event. So the public calendar will only show public events. And this is also where that event type visibility option comes into play, is if I'm using this, it will show the location and stuff of, so I'm using, I think this is a webinar type event. If this is a webinar type event, and I've said that all webinar type events show the notes, the addresses, or the address and the other visibility option. Sorry, I forgot. All of that information will be showed in this little box. So that way, as soon as they come here, they'll see all of it in one, and they'll be able to come in and start registering. So that you can also always use that. You can use this to also iframe your calendars. So in this little hub bubble, we actually give you some example coding. So you can pull this, put it in your website, and boom, you've iframed your public calendar from GreenRope into your into a web page. You can iframe anywhere. So there's other options down here, so always feel free to do that. So yeah, so that's how you kind of share and connect your calendars around, just around the interwebs kind of thing. Awesome. All right, so we've got 5 minutes. Okay, we got 5 minutes, and I want to make sure that we have enough time to go over questions as well. So let's try and get through the other options, because again, calendars are super powerful. So so there are going to be other options. So the first thing we always want to make sure we do once we set up everything within the system is check our reminders. So we've created all these calendars and all these events and everything's going and moving and grooving, but now we want to make sure people get reminders about these events. The way you do that is by going into the group settings. So the group settings do have a few event options that are important, and the big one is event reminders. This is where you say, okay, any event in this group's calendar needs to get reminders 12 hours before, the day of, and 2 days before, right? And the reminder for those events are going to be this reminder email. So again, that might be why you say, oh, we don't want our public events. We don't want our private events to be getting the same reminder emails as our public events. So we're going to split those into 2 separate groups, right? So always make sure to check that out. The event reminders are really important, so definitely do that. So definitely make sure you do that before you start sending out the emails and stuff for your events. If you go into your calendar, you'll also see the option for who gets these reminders. So I showed you in the event types that you can set the default of like, okay, when it's a webinar, these people get the reminders, but you can also set it per event too. You can say, hey, okay, for my team meeting event, I want to make sure that all my active group members, not just confirmed, get this event, and that the reminder also sends out the RSVP link. That RSVP link is going to look a little something like this. So this is the email with that RSVP link put into it. It literally says they can say they want to attend or not attend. It will give them all the information. You can build out this email however you want. It also gives them weather information, which I think is really fun and nice, especially if it's going to be outside, because no one wants to be outside 97-degree weather. But yeah, so this is where you can say, you can designate who's getting those reminders in the events or by the default of the event type. So just make sure to always check for those reminders and double check before, usually about a week is usually when people start want to start reminding everybody, but you can do it way before. I think the furthest out you can do is 6 days, 7, maybe it's 7. No, 6 days. Yeah. So this is also where you can do SMS reminders. So SMS reminders are always sent 2 hours before the event. But this is a good way to do just like an extra, like, hey, by the way, don't forget about your event. But there's a ton of other options down here for like attendance actions. If you want, these are a lot of default things. So like if you wanted to set the default for the attendance summary always goes to blank. You could do that, so that way you don't have to worry about it per event. You can always want to make sure that the time zone makes sense for where you're going to be at. So a lot of times your calendar is going to be in the same time zone as the account, but there are times where you might need a calendar that's in like Pacific time rather than Eastern time. So you can absolutely change your time zone per group or per group for those calendars. Hopefully that makes sense. And then I think lastly, there are just little extras that we have. So firstly is our Zoom integration. So we do have a Zoom integration within the settings. If you go to settings, account, and integrations, you will find the Zoom integration. And that Zoom integration, what it does is as long as you have a GreenRope event that has the exact same date, time, meeting type, and title, an event title, as an event as a meeting in Zoom, they will sync up. And that means that, okay, in GreenRope, these people said they were attending, but in Zoom, these are who actually attend. And at the end of the Zoom meeting, it will automatically transfer all the attendees from there. And it's not just me, this is what I was doing. But after that event in Zoom, it will automatically transfer all those attendees from Zoom into GreenRope. So then that way, okay, these people said they were coming, these are the actual people who showed up. So if you're going to be doing a lot of Zoom stuff, check that out. Members only. So like I said, you can make it a members only type area. That's actually within group settings as well. We go to description, member logins. So you can make that member logins. You can say this is a public thing. And then if you look here, you'll see your profile. This is that profile this is the profile that the membership visibility will show. So this is a good place. The profile can also show it. If you scroll down, you can see that it will show me all of the events that I'm saying I'm attending or not attending. Basically all the ones that I've been invited to. But yeah, so definitely if you have a members only area, or if you have like a website that's members only, you can set the calendar to be for those members only. So they're not public, but they're not private either. So it's a good kind of middle ground there. And then lastly is custom CSS. So if you ever want a public facing calendar, so if you wanted this calendar to have some, different, you wanted it to look different, you want a different, font or something, you wanted a bigger font or different colors. I don't know why I said it like that. Anyways, you can do that by going into settings. Wait, no, hold on. Is it settings calendar? No, it's down here. It's in group settings. So in group settings, event options, you'll see calendar design, and you can say, okay, the calendar within this group has this style sheet information. And so you can put custom CSS to change the font, the size of the font, the weight, the weight of the font. I don't know why I'm up to fonts. Colors, you can change the box styles. If you are dangerous with CSS, you can make the event calendars look like 100% different with CSS in here. So that's just an extra layer of customization that you can do with calendars. All right. So I think I've talked your ear off enough. Let's go ahead and answer some questions. I do see that we had a few more come in, so let's try and answer those as best as we can. I think we're getting over a little bit. So, all right, I'm going to try and get through as much as possible. But yeah, so let's go ahead and check out what we got over here. So, Steve Debris. Okay, Steve says, allowing 10 minutes in between meetings, is that a possibility? So the best way to do that is to set up different booking slots. So you could say, okay, I want to start my booking slots at 10 a.m. to 11. Okay, great. That's my first booking slot. Then I want my next one to be 10 minutes later. So it's 11:10. So this is the best way to do that. You can, there isn't a way to set a buffer necessarily, but you can set advanced notice. And you can, like I said, you can say that events are every 30 minutes between. So there isn't a way to necessarily have the system create those buffers for you, but you can create them with the booking slots. Okay. Let's see. Megan asks, so if I want a booking calendar for sales calls, one for demos and one for account sign up calls, I have to do them in different groups. Not necessarily. So we actually have the same thing where we have discovery calls and we have trainings, and we have those both on the same calendar, and we just set those as two different event types. So you can have it to where demos are one event type and account sign up calls are a different type. Now that does mean that the that does mean that the client or the contact is the one who sets what event they're getting. So, oh, I don't have anything on here, do I? There it is. Okay. So like this. So if I wanted, instead of meeting, I wanted to have a couple options, I would just say this time slot allows for these different event types, and then the client can pick it. Now, if you don't want them to pick it, then yes, your best option is to have two separate groups with calendars, one that only allows for demos and one that only allows for account sign-up calls. So 2 ways to do that. Steve, also embedding the Zoom link within, just put in the RSVP page. Is that the easiest option? Yes, I would say probably put the Zoom link in the RSVP page. You can put your Zoom link in the emails that get sent out for it. You can put the Zoom link in the registration description or in the registration instructions. You could put the Zoom link in the reminder emails that you send out, because you can send out custom emails. You don't have to send out just the blank one, or not blank ones, but the default ones that the system has. So you can put the Zoom link wherever. Like I said, we have an event type. Well, we have an event location that is Zoom, and you can put your Zoom link in there, because every location allows you to put a link, I believe, if I remember correctly. Let me go calendars, location, new location. Yeah, so you can put a website in there. So if I wanted to, I could say Zoom always goes to this website. So then when they get the RSVP, it says Zoom, here's the link for it. So there's a ton of places where you can put the Zoom link for it to automatically be there, and then to find it. I think we typically put it in the, for bookings, we put it into the comments and description. We also put it in emails, so tons of places. Would I find that for Microsoft Office 365 as well? I'm guessing you mean the sync, and yes, you can absolutely sync with anything that allows for public calendars, essentially. So any email client, any calendar system that you have that allows for you to subscribe to other calendars and stuff, you can sync it with our system and back. Awesome. And then let's see, I think we have another question here. Can we add custom HTML to update the design and the event registration / RSVP pages? I see basic customization can be made, but we are hoping to make the registration plus RSVP page match with our website's theme and style. So Tony, yes. So for the RSVP page, absolutely. So if you go in here and you go to settings, this RSVP page, you'll want to hit custom web page, and there you go. You can create your own custom page. So I don't know if you were here when it happened, but I did this and I didn't put anything in, so it kept trying to bounce us to the login page for GreenRope. But yes, you can absolutely do that. Now, when it comes to the registration page, page background is the only thing you can really change. So there isn't a lot when it comes to the coding of that. I don't know what public calendar is. That's interesting. But like I could change it to green, hit save, and then when I go to that registration page, it's green in the background, because this page isn't necessarily like the registration page. Most of that registration page is going to be these instructions and notes, or the description that you create. So that would be the best way. And you can create them with buttons and articles and all this other stuff. You can do that the same here. So the bulk of the registration page, that the main change that most people want is they want like an image in the background or a different color, because again, most of what you're going to see on this page is going to be right here. So I know a lot of people who just have like, they go in and they build out like almost full landing pages within this builder. And then when people go, it's like a huge page with all the registration options and then like a custom color in the back. So there is ways to change it, but it's just about finding what works best. So I know one account where they build out like an entire landing page in here. And then that way, when you go to their registration page, it's like fully customized and you wouldn't even know that it looks the same. But there isn't necessarily a way to change what that full, there isn't a way to edit the registration page HTML itself, if that makes sense. So, awesome. All right, so I think those are all the questions. Cool. All right, well then I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. I thank you guys so much for joining us. I'm so sorry I forgot to put a slide up for the thank you, but thank you guys so much for joining us. If you ever need anything, I don't know why I went back in here. If you ever need anything, always feel free to go into the help section. The help section has a ton of information in here, and this also has the options for support, 24/7 support. You can always come in and ask any questions you have on anything. Access all of our help section, and yeah. So thank you guys again so much for joining us, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and we'll see you guys next time.